Okay, let's see. Yes, I have a mic. Warm welcome. I'm very proud to work at a faculty where we have a future faculty. My name is Maria Björkqvist, and I'm dean here at the medical faculty. And it's fantastic to see that we have a very interesting program ahead of us. And with this, I will hand over to Anders. Anders.
Thank you, Maria. So I also want to welcome you to this event, and I'll also just remind everyone that it's live streamed. So welcome to everyone who's watching on YouTube as well. And I'm very excited for today, and we have a great panel of speakers, including the Minister of Education, who you'll hear from in shortly. But first, I just wanted to explain what future faculty is. And I think I have my slides here. So Future Faculty, we are an organization for young researchers at the medical faculty. And we do several things. So we have members who have taken their PhD, but who have not yet received tenure. And the task that we take on is that we represent early career researchers in different boards and committees, so that the voice of young researchers is heard. So we sit at the faculty board, the docent committee, and other committees as well. And then we also see ourselves as having an important communication function. So we both try to take information from the faculty board and the university and spread it to young researchers so that they're prepared for an academic career or a career outside of academia as well. And we also, of course, communicate the other way. So we do surveys and talk to our members, and then bring that voice forward to the committees and boards that we're part of. We also have many career planning events. We help young researchers write good grants and find the grants. How do you get teaching, which is important as well, and also leadership training. So we're also a training ground for future leaders, the way we see it. And then we also have many social exchange events. So we have afterworks where we can meet up and meet other young researchers. So the goals for this event today, which has been planned for quite some time now, is to discuss problems and solutions regarding academic careers in Sweden. So as you'll hear today, there's many challenges for young researchers, and I think many of the listeners will recognize that it can be a very long and insecure road, and how can we make that in the best possible way and also get the best possible research in Sweden. And that's why we also chose to call it stability and flexibility, because we think the balance between these two is crucial. We want both, but how do we find the right balance? And so one thing that I think future faculty always stresses is that even though it can be hard, it's important with transparency so that people know the conditions that they're facing. And also another important issue is, of course, for international researchers. They often find it difficult, as you'll hear from Nicole shortly, to get into the Swedish system and understand the Swedish system. And then to what extent, another thing I hope to discuss today is to what extent should job security be dependent on grants? How do we get that balance? And I think we have several key persons here today who have a lot to say about that. So I really look forward to hearing from all the people here today. And first, we have my friend and colleague, Nicole, who will present a recent survey from National Junior Faculty. And I'll let you explain what National Junior Faculty is. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Anders. So Anders has introduced me. I'm Nicole Vanderberg. I'm a board member on the Future Faculty steering board. I have been for several years, and I also have been on the board of the National Junior Faculty, and currently am a member. But I'm author on our current manuscript that we're putting together that I'm going to present in a moment. But National Junior Faculty is like Future Faculty here, but made up of 9 different universities and institutes in Sweden. We get together always online, since we are all over Sweden, and we attempt to take in the data and the problems of the day for early career researchers, and try and implement new solutions and make awareness in the government agencies, the funding sources, the university leadership, and the public debate. So without further ado, this is the about to be submitted manuscript, and it is made up of surveys that we conducted between 2015 and 2021 every 2 years, and is collating over 4,000 responses from early career researchers in Sweden. But first, I just want to break the ice a little bit with a little comic. Wow, congratulations on your PhD. So what do you do now? You must have so many great jobs lined up now that you've studied science for like 8 years. Thanks, yeah, I got a 6-month postdoc position in Sweden. I'm so excited. I feel like how this exemplifies how unstable early career academic career can be. I personally am 5 years out of my PhD and have had 6 contract renewals. So I'm sure you can all sympathize why dedicated researchers in Sweden may feel a little disrespected and want to leave academia sometimes here. So it's important to understand how hard we've worked. So if I could get a little bit of interaction from the audience here, and hello to those that are online, but you can participate if you like, but I can't see you, sorry. Please raise your hand if you are on the academic career path now. Cool, so we have 80% of the room. Maybe the professors can put their hands down, but keep your hand up if you're on the academic career path. Keep it up. Now, keep it up if you understand the career path. Do you know what the next job title is? Do you know your promotion criteria for where you're going to apply for? Oh, we've got some waves and we've got, I don't know, 15% hands left up. Yes, so this is the point that we're trying to raise here. It's confusing and it's frustrating when it's confusing because we want to follow the rules. So I will talk about that in a moment. I have simplified to no end the career path here, from a little bachelor student up to a professor. And I just want to sort of define what we're going to talk about here is the early career researchers and who those people are. So for the simplicity of this talk, we're talking about people about 8 to 10 years out of their PhD. They could have a title called postdoc or bull or associate professor. But why are they important? What do they do? Well, we create a lot of the new ideas. We are carefree at pushing these ideas in and pushing our hypothesis and what we believe in, even if it's not the scientific norm. We are actively testing these new hypotheses, often with a lot less supervisions, and we are happy to just go in and get as many results out as possible to try and answer new questions. We're just at the forefront of an in-depth analysis and the writing, of course, of new ideas in Sweden and in the academic system. So that's what we do. But let's take a moment to really situate early career researchers. We have the highest, the highest form of education provided worldwide. And we are so happy to follow the rules, as I said before. You know, we're talking about people who will get the exact right font, margin, spacing, word count for the teeny tiny bit of funding so we can do one experiment. And we will do that again and again and again. We just need to know what those rules are. And it can be very confusing. But I would like to say that the survey data that I'm starting to present here, we are happy in Sweden. We do agree that Sweden is a more attractive place to work than somewhere else. We really want to do our best research, but we disagree that our situation allows us to do the best possible science, and we disagree that we have time to do all of our work, especially the research work. So what is stopping our best ability to do research? Well, this was one of the key results that came out of the manuscript over all of the years that we've been surveying the early career researchers in Sweden. Our career path is always disagreed to be clear. It's unclear, it's mostly unattractive, and it's very much not secure. What does that mean? What does that break down to bit by bit as you work your way through the career? Let's start with trying to make the leap from postdoc to bull. I know I'm oversimplifying the names here. Put whatever name you would like. From a postdoc to a bull, what is creating this separation between the two cliffs to make this leap? Well, it's a lot of position availability. Sometimes we have had years where there are no bull positions available to apply for, so how are we supposed to move forward? Funding is the other option. So if the position is not available, we need to apply for external funding, and that is a 4-year grant that we need. And I say at least a 4-year grant because at this point we've already been on so many short-term contracts that we are forced to take a more longer-term contract. We need to have a more stable career path at this point, according to the laws in Sweden. And I understand where that's coming from. It's very important that we have more stability. That is what we're rooting for. But at the same time, we might fall at this point. And we're talking about 18 years of scientific research and dedication at this point, at the end of your postdoc, to just fall through the cracks because you can't get that one next job, which I feel like is quite a waste. And again, from bull to ul, put your own titles here if you need to. There's also a lot of differentiation between the promotion criteria here, if it's even clear at all, depending on which institute or university you're looking at. And there's no really alternatives either. If you don't make that leap, where do you go? You sort of sit in limbo. So unless you get external grants again. So moving on from the career path, there's also some great data in the survey manuscript about the equal opportunities mismatch for international researchers. So we're talking about jumping from international to Sweden. The two biggest ones that topics that are brought up are always stipends and domestic bias of some sort, making it very difficult for people to get into the Swedish system. And just some brief data on that. I say stipends are quite a problem for the international researchers, not the domestic ones, because so many of the international researchers are put on the stipends. It's almost like the domestic researchers know not to take the stipends. I want to say a quick note here that I personally have been on a stipend, and I'm actually an advocate for them, but that's a debate we can have later. Nonetheless, it's also difficult as an international researcher or an external applicant to actually get the job. Even though we are the majority that applies for one particular position or another, we have 50% less chance actually getting that position than an internal or domestic researcher. So, moving on to the mismatch of equal opportunities for parents. Just very briefly, it can be difficult still, even in Sweden, to get back into the academic career as a parent. And I'm going to highlight what that wedge is in a moment, and it's supported by this data here. So here we have a graph of 4 different research positions in the early career stage. And for each one, you've got the bars on the left that are people who have children, and the bars on the right that people don't have children, and our scale is age. So overall, the people with children or parents are significantly older than those that are not parents in each position. And of course, that makes sense. You delay your career, right? You've taken some time off, so you probably are older in each position. But what does that actually mean in the system that we have right now? What it actually means you can have a lot less professorship years. And these are your golden years that you're aiming for. You really want to get to that point. So the way that that reduces is that by the time you actually get to the professorship years, you're much closer to your retirement age. So it's just good to keep in mind that that is a disadvantage that we are facing at the moment. We also have age-limited opportunities, not necessarily in Sweden. Of course, Sweden is actually very good, but we have to keep bringing in external funds away from Sweden. And that's very good for Swedish research as well, to bring in external funds. But we are age-limited in a lot of the opportunities that are available from other countries and from the EU and so forth. So this is a disadvantage that it's good to keep in mind. So the last and final piece of data that I'd like to bring up from the survey is finance. Of course, money is always something that could be solved in some way or another, but it was one of the top things that said we got them to list what of the following limits your ability to do quality research. And out of the three, the top two were two of them were funding opportunities and the source of funding for your position. So what I wanted to do is sort of collate the concepts. These quotes on the right are not real quotes. I have made them up to just facilitate sort of scenarios that we're having. For example, we will hire you, but can you find your own salary, please? Or we expect researchers to fill their salary with teaching hours, which is fine. We're in a university. Of course, teaching can be part of it. But then they have too many teachers and not enough hours to provide them in the courses. Or, of course, the dreaded overhead. So now you have finally made your own lab. You've got funding for yourself. You've got funding for your student. You've even got some funding for experiments. But now you need another 25% overhead. And at the same time, during your precious research hours, you're asked to do a lot of finance and safety and floor management and recruitment and organized committees and deliveries. And you're just sitting there going, what am I paying this for? So yes, I know that it is used. I know it is expensive here, but at the same time, early career researchers are really hindered by this. So let's move on to solutions. All right, that's enough downs. Let's look up. One solution that sort of kept coming through from the survey data was that we really need to clarify the academic career track across Sweden. Clarify the positions available, clarify the promotion criteria, clarify the financing for each position. If you make the rules, we will follow them. And in doing so, what I really believe that this will lead to is that we will eliminate wasted time from early career researchers trying to understand where to go next. I mean, in 5 years, I've had 6 renewals of my contract. That's a lot of time of anxiety wasted trying to figure out what's going to happen 6 months from now, 1 year from now. We can create equal opportunities for both the domestic and international early career researchers by doing this, because everyone knows the rules, so we can all fight fairly. I'm hoping that this could even focus funding. The external sources available can now really look at the track, the career track, and go, all right, let's try and help these particular positions, this particular position. And that might even create more funding in a sense, even though we have the same budget. And a bonus is that we could even encourage inter-university collaboration within Sweden, because now we all know where we're coming from, what promotion we've gone to get to each position from one university to another. But ultimately, we just need more time and funding to produce quality research and teaching. That is always our ultimate goal. That's what we're always trying to do. And just as a quick little example, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Here for the last 2 years at the medical faculty, we worked really hard to create a model for the BUL-UL promotion criteria and also include a little bit of the clinic. I'm not going to go through the details here. I'm just saying it's here. I'm sure other institutes and universities in Sweden also have worked really hard to fix little parts of this mess so we could get together a little more. And this is what I really want from today, is everyone to start being aware, and let's start moving forward to actually clarify this. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for listening, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can solve today. Yes.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And I think we have framed some of the problems now, and Now I would just like to introduce our first speaker, or not first speaker, but next speaker, Mats Persson, the Minister of Education. And before you became minister, according to your CV, you have a PhD as well from here in Lund in economics. And I looked around online and I found a nice quote on your homepage or the government's homepage. So knowledge and education are the basis for social development and prosperity. Sweden must develop as a knowledge nation with world-class research and higher education. And I'm really looking forward to hear what you have to say and how you're working with these issues. And at the end of your talk, I think we still, even though we're a bit behind schedule, we'll have some time for questions from the audience as well. So please, Mats Persson, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking this initiative, and let's see if we can solve the mess. I'm not sure that we can solve it in 3 hours, but let's give it a try. Dear organizers and participants, it's an honor to be here at my alma mater at Lund University and to discuss this very important issues regarding career paths and mobility and excellence in research. Knowledge and education are the basis for our society. And I would say that for Sweden to remain strong in the future and to continue and to develop as a knowledge society, attractive and sustainable research careers, talent recruitment and talent circulation, higher mobility, interdisciplinary and within a discipline. That's fruitful and very important in order for this to happen. And I would say it's cornerstones in an excellent research environment. And I would like to share some perspectives of these aspects. First of all, attracting talent to academia is crucial to achieving excellent research. Research cannot be done, and research result cannot be achieved without talented, qualified researchers. And this is, of course, true for doctoral students all the way up to professors. An attractive and sustainable research career are essential not only for individual researchers but also for Sweden in order to develop and maintain our position as a leading country in both education and research. And clear and transparent conditions, both in terms of resources and career paths, must be in place for qualified individuals to consider pursuing a research career. And the existence of a transparent career system is important for individuals to have an overview of and be able to plan for a future career in academia. In this respect, the career path or tenure track, that's actually the term I prefer to use, that exists in the Swedish higher education system is sometimes, and perhaps, or I would say it is, too often, underutilized. Since 2018, the position of Associate Senior Lecturer, biträdande lektoral, BUL, is the first step in the Swedish equivalent of a tenure track system. Following this position, the 2 other steps in the system goes on in order for hopefully all of you can become professors. And using this tenure track system, it's important, it's crucial in order for us to increase the excellence in research in Sweden. And recruitment to the position of different positions is a strategically important recruitment tool to be used by universities. This is not a matter of labor market legislation. This is a matter of strategic work in order to higher the quality of the research within a university. And given this opportunity, the position gives qualified individuals a chance to become a part of a long-term research career. Sweden is a small and smart country. We invest a lot in education and research. 3.4% of the Swedish GDP are invested in research and development. Most of this, of course, from the private sector, but a lot of money are invested from the public sector. And during the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, a lot of European countries in particular decreased their investments in research and education. Sweden did the opposite. We increased our investments in research and education. And during the pandemic, Sweden did, temporarily at least, we did the same thing. So during the last 10, 15 years, we have increased the amount of money that we have invested in research and education. But the quality in terms of research quality has not increased to the same amount. I would say that's a big problem. So money is one aspect, but clear pathway and mobility in the system and using tenure track system as a strategic question for a university is more just as important as the issue of money. Unfortunately, Sweden is a good example of that. It's not only a question of money, because if that would have been the case, we would have our journey would have been much better than other countries. But that has not happened, unfortunately. Comparing Sweden with our competitive countries, and then I'm talking about countries such as Denmark, other small and smart countries such as Denmark, Netherlands, Switzerland, for example. The quality of Swedish research, we don't have the same pace as those countries have, and that's a big, I would say that's a big problem. The government have the questions regarding mobility and tenure track system. It's high on our agenda, and I will give you some examples of what we're doing at the moment, and also some examples what we're planning on doing. The government, we have been listening to several of the medical faculties around Sweden in terms of the career paths, in terms of the associate professor, the biträdande lektorat. And we are now increasing the years from 5 to 7 years, allowing for medical faculties to have a more international career pathway. I think it has been a problem for Sweden that we have not used, our system have not been in line with the international system, and I would say in particular at the medical departments and medical faculties, that has been a big problem. And it has the Swedish system today. We're going to change that now, but it has not been in line, for example, with the rules in the European Research Council, for example. That's a big problem in order to increase excellence and quality in terms of research. So we are changing that now. But I really want to emphasize that this also means that within a given subject, for example, if you take economics, I know that best, but I assume that medicine, it's similar. We also need to have a collaboration within each subject between the universities, because if we want to increase mobility, we want to increase mobility in Sweden. We're not only aiming for PhD students from Lund University to leave Lund for US or for other European countries. We also aim for people to leave Lund for Gothenburg, Stockholm, Umeå, Linköping, etc. So we need to have more mobility in the Swedish system, and then we need to have more collaboration within each subject. We cannot have different rules in a given subject between the universities. That's my point of view, if we want to enhance mobility in the system. And from a practical point of view, I think it's also important to say that early in your career, you create family, you get kids. Some people are driving to leave for US, but a lot of people also love the Swedish welfare model and want to live in Sweden, and then moving from Lund to Gothenburg might be an easier way. I know it's a weird thing to do, but okay, the other way around, moving from Gothenburg to Lund, it's an easier way to do than to move to Boston or to move to Silicon Valley. So we need to have more mobility in the Swedish system. Secondly, I would like to emphasize the question of merits and the importance that, and it's not my role as a politician to decide what kind of merits that are fruitful in a given subject. That would be crazy. But we need to have a discussion about quantity versus quality. We need to have a discussion about quantity versus quality. The Swedish system are based on the notion that it's important to publish. That's correct, and that's a good thing. It's important to publish a lot. And we need to have a discussion about quantity versus quality in terms of publication. And I'm not going to. I don't want to be the judge, so to speak. It's up to it's a within academia issue, but we need to have a discussion. We need to have a discussion about this, because, and in particular in medicine. I mean, and I don't know all the journals because you know them better than me, but the really, really good ones, the amount of work you need to put in to get into the really, really good ones, it's a lot of work compared to a low-ranked journal, and you need to have a system where you take the quality more into account. In economics, for example, there is a big debate about what kind of journals are the top 5 and who are the top 10, and so to speak. And I think also that's a good thing to discuss. I mean, it's a good thing if we at universities have more discussions about what is good and quality research and what is mediocre research, so to speak. We should have more discussions, more seminars about that, and maybe less seminars about other things that we have seminars at the university. I think you all know what I'm talking about, but I don't dare to say what it is, so to speak. Thirdly, I would like to say that there is a lack of clarity of the career paths in Sweden. And I think the lack of clarity is a problem in itself. I mean, given the amount of money we have in the Swedish system, you can always ask for more money, of course. But given the amount of money we have in the Swedish system, it's the lack of clear career paths. It's the lack of the clarification. I think that makes people very, very stressful. If you, as a young researcher, know that there is a clear pathway for me, if I'm doing the right things, I apply for the right grants, I have the possibility to have publications in the right journal, so to speak. If I know that if I reach some goals, and that there is a position waiting for me in the other end, I think that will create a really, really calmness among a lot of researchers in comparison. Well, not calmness, but I mean, at least you know. I mean, there will be a lot of work to be done, but at least you know that there is something waiting for me at the other end, so to speak. Finally, I would like to say that this is a discussion about the career path within academia. Just let me emphasize the importance of the mobility between sectors. And I don't have to say this for you because this is a medical department, but medical faculty. But of course, the mobility between academia and the healthcare sector, between academia and the industry, and the academia to the welfare state, such as teachers and stuff like that. We need to have more mobility within the sectors. And actually, and the Swedish government, we are now planning to deregulate all the framework and all the rules regarding mobility between sectors in order to make it easier for individuals to move between academia, healthcare sector and industry. I think that would be really, really fruitful. And there are no contradiction between cooperation with companies and having good researchers. In fact, the best papers, sometimes the most cited papers, are very often done in a collaboration between academia and the industry. And in particular, I would say that's the case in medicine and technology. And I think this is also a way to increase the amount of excellence in the Swedish system. Thank you for organizing this. This kind of issues we are discussing these kind of issues. We should have more discussions and more debates about these kind of issues. And I would really hope for that we have more internal seminars at the university level about quality in research, about career paths, in comparison to all the other seminars we're having, because this is so important. I think that the discussion in itself is important. To have a discussion of, is this journal better than this journal? Is this kind of career paths we have at our university? How are we compared to other ones in Sweden? How are we in comparison to other European universities? And how are our system in comparison to American system, for example? And I will also say that discussion about the criteria for merits, that we have a discussion about this. I think that's really important in order to have more excellence and to increase the quality of Swedish research. So thank you for taking this initiative. I'm really looking forward to the discussion, and this is high on the government's agenda. So thank you. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Mats. And I think we can start the discussion now. So I know you have to run off at 10.
Yeah.
But that means we have 20 minutes for questions from the audience. And so I think it's open for questions. And if you have questions, you actually have a microphone next to your seat. So you find a button there and a red light will go on, and then you can ask your question and then remember to turn it off afterwards.
I can start. Thank you. Yes, I can start in a moment. When Mats has finished writing his
I forgot to say one thing, but I would say it.
No problem.
So.
Very good. I thank you so much for that really insightful talk. It gave me sort of a view of what it's like sitting in your position in the government, trying to push for us, and what you're getting pushed back with. And so I empathize when we have, as a country, in your department, I'm assuming, has increased the funding for the academic system, and yet you've not been able to go back with increased quality results from our end. And hopefully now you have a little bit of insight from my talk as to maybe why we're not producing quality results. We're possibly doing a lot more other things, trying to keep ourselves afloat. But nonetheless, let's hypothesize a future where we understand better what a quality result is, and we all start aiming for that, and we all start working towards that, and there are positions available that say you will get this position if you produce XYZ quality results. Is the government then willing to review and match the demand? Because if you give us the right rules, we're going to run with it and we're going to produce fantastic quality results for you. But then we need to all know that those demands are going to be met, as we, at the moment, only 100 positions are needed. But if we keep pushing, now you will have 1,000 in 10 years that want that position. Will the government then keep increasing and matching that?
Yes and no. That's a political type of answer. But I think the challenge here is that the Swedish academic system is very, I mean, the political agenda, we don't, this is at the university level to decide the system regarding merits, the early career paths and all that stuff. What we are trying to do is that we are trying now to pushing this as much as we can from a political side. Some people think that we are pushing it too much. Apparently not you in this audience, but around in Sweden, people think that we are pushing or trying to steer the universities too much, so to speak. But I think it's important that we do it because, unfortunately, the system, because the system in itself, the universities in itself, because internal structures are so slow, apparently haven't had the possibility to change this. They are trying now from some of the universities to do it from top down, but this is a bottom-up model from start. So it's really hard to have a top-down when it's a bottom-up system. And then we are coming from the side trying to push this. For example, the change from 5 to 7. I think that will be very, very important, not at least for the medical faculties. And we are trying to do different things in order to increase mobility in the system. But mobility will demand, as I said, that all universities in Sweden are doing the same. If Lund University or the medical faculty in Lund says we need to increase mobility, it can only be successful if other universities in Sweden are doing the same thing. Because if it's only Lund, then there will be no other positions available at other places for Lund researchers to take. So of course we need to have a cooperation between universities. The issue of money, yeah, of course. What we are analyzing at the moment is that we have a system in Sweden that there has been. I mean, there are different political views. That's one thing, but there has been doing for too long time. In Sweden, we have something we call jantelag. Do you know what that is? Yeah.
Yes.
You don't know, so I'm going to explain it. It's not okay to be. It's okay to be Zlatan in football, Zlatan Ibrahimovic in football, but it's not to be okay to be Zlatan in other things in society. So we have not concentrated the resources to the places where the research quality is the highest. Instead, we have spread the resources out, and so a lot of the money that have been invested invested to increase the system as a whole, not to increase quality. And now we are analyzing different tools to change this in order for it to increase the quality in the system, basically. So we have invested a lot of money, but we have a lot of money in the system, but it's at the wrong places, so to speak. And we need to find a way to get the money to the right places.
Of course, and there's a fine balance there, because obviously you would meet so much resistance if you said this is exactly what you need to do as universities. It does need to come from us up, of course, and that's what's so great about this event with including NGF, is that we are Sweden-wide. I would like to just quickly find out the numbers of how many people are online as well. Just so we have an idea of what kind of audience we are collecting together for this discussion.
Close to 90.
Okay, close to 90. So yes, and of course this will be available online and reshared as well. So let's take questions from the audience.
I just forgot to say something. I would like, because there's a lot of international people here. I would like to say that we are. During the last years, we have had several, I would say, severe problems in terms of the migration framework, migration rules in Sweden. Because in 2022, I think it was, there was a new legislation where the parliament, unfortunately, didn't have special rules for researchers. But now we are changing that. That's in the government plan, so to speak. It was in the regeringsförklaring, the declaration from the government, 2022, from the new government. So we are changing that system now. Fortunately, we have had some decisions in the courts that has gone the right way. So some things are already changing. But we also are trying to change the system, or actually we will change the system in the coming years. So all the problems with you can't leave Sweden for a conference because you don't know if you can come back, the rules of 18 months in order to stay in Sweden and so on. We're changing those things. Some things are changing quickly thanks to some of the decisions in courts. Some things are our legislations, but we're working on that. Just want to say that we are on that issue, so to speak.
That's really good to hear. Yeah. That's really good to hear. I mean, in 2019, I was told by my recruitment officer here, it would be easier if you were a refugee rather than you having a PhD.
Yeah.
So it's great to hear. Audience, please. We have a few minutes. Yes, Ramesh?
My name is Ramesh. I come from Swedish University of Agriculture Sciences. I would like to ask, the standard career paths, they vary from university to university. Is government planning some kind of a reform to standardize these career paths from bull to UL to professorships?
Yeah, we're actually analyzing that issue at the moment. So to some extent, yes, we are analyzing what we can do from the government point of view, so to speak. But in the new legislation that will be regarding the mobility between sectors and also the new regulation regarding 5 to 7 years, we are very clear in the framing of that. We are we actually pointing to the actors in the system that if the higher mobility are going to work, it demands that the universities within a subject have a cooperation, because we can't have different rules in, I take economics because I know that best. You can't have 5 year at Lund University and 7 year at Stockholm University. There has to be similarities. And the next thing to do, I think, is to have a discussion within each subject between the universities in Sweden regarding the merits. It's a bad thing, I think, for trust in the system that the merit system are so different from different universities. I don't think that's a good thing. We need to have a cooperation. It might be that that's not possible, but we need to have more discussions between the universities. The 7 year change we're doing now, that's a no-brainer for everyone in medical issues, so to speak. But at the technical universities, the 5 year that's a normal thing in those kind of subjects. So we also need to have realize that it's very different between subjects. The most important thing is to have the same rules within each subject. That's the most important thing.
Just as a continuation of this question, on the other side, for the universities, in some universities, we don't have promotion systems because it's a financial burden for the universities. And that's why we have very few UL or bull positions. I don't know if government in the future will increase the allocation or increase more industry collaboration. So some money could be put in for those positions. Like in USA, you have chair professors being funded by companies.
Yeah, what we have in Sweden is that we have a good collaboration and also financing collaboration in terms of PhD students, industrial doctoral students, so to speak. That's I mean, we have that in the system, but of course you can always, of course, compared to US, we don't have that to the same extent. No. Of course not. But of course there is also a challenge in terms to, I mean, subjects that are very research dependent, such as medicine or agriculture, where you have less, the proportion of teaching compared to the proportion of research are very unbalanced, so to speak. Of course, in that model, it's much more difficult for the faculties to have a lot of positions that are fixed, so to speak. But I think the biggest problem is not that. The biggest problem here is the lack of clarification in the system. What can I rely on, so to speak? And then we have a lot of we have some private fundings and foundations that are now, I mean, for example, the Wallenberg Foundation, but there are more of them, are trying to create this kind of more fixed positions. And I think that's something I know that the university here in Lund are working on as well. And we're also considering, is that something that the Swedish government should to some extent try to increase in the system, so to speak. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Magnus.
Does it work? Yeah. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Mats, for a nice talk. So a few questions. First, so I think I enjoyed to hear the idea of increasing mobility within Sweden. I think that's a great attempt. One of the main issues, of course, funding for those positions. Because, I mean, announcement of positions within the universities are already limited, so it's not likely that it will increase just because you say that at the government. So, I mean, VR announces international postdocs every year. Is that something that is in a letter of recommendation to the from the government and to the funding agencies that that those should be in place? And will it come with funding as well?
Well, we're going to present the research bill in the coming fall. So, but of course, I mean, I think that the Swedish Research Council are very, very important because that's one. It has a very, very high trust in the system. So I think we really, really need to use the power and the high degree of trust that people have in the Swedish Research Council. We have to use that in order to change the system. And I think that one. For example, the early career investments in talented young researchers is, of course, really, really important. That Swedish Research, that the Vetenskapsrådet, that they have the Swedish Research Council, that they have the right tools to deal with that. Yeah.
I'll just stick in with another one. So one thing that you mentioned here in the discussion now is the funding of positions from external funders, such as Wallenberg Foundation. So although I understand that, and it's fortunate that those money are available, but it's also somewhat of a problem because it means that external funders start to control the universities by employing people, and that might constitute a problem because the universities as such might have a strategic idea of how the subject should be funded, what positions should be created, and then all of a sudden Wallenberg Foundation starts to announce positions for senior lecturer or professor, and all of a sudden the universities needs to figure out a way to get those people in. And I mean, yes, it's a great thing that there are money in the system for positions, but it challenges the universities' possibilities of creating their own strategic setup. So, what's your view on how that's controlled? Because I mean, it would be very strange if Wallenberg all of a sudden would start announcing position at AstraZeneca, say we're funding positions that you can have at AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca would say no, we're strategic and planning our own way. So I think
it's a very good question. A very good question. I understand it. It's I don't think that the Wallenberg Foundation is the problem. I think that the lack of strategic work at the universities, that's the problem, and that's changing now. Because I think what's happening, because of first of all, the Wallenberg Foundation. I mean, what I did 10, 15 years ago, that was pretty new then. Now it's more common sense, so to speak. I would say that the internationalization in Sweden in the system has been very, very important because that has implied that people are coming from other countries saying, why do you have this weird system in Sweden? In US we're doing it this way. In UK we're doing it this way. In Denmark you can have this position. And then the Swedish system has to change. And what we're seeing now at the university level, I think they're really working on strategic issues. I think they're doing a really, really good job in order to, I mean, at least there are really, really interesting strategic plans here at Lund University, at Uppsala University, and so on. So a lot of things are happening now, but I think it should have happened 10 years ago. But we can't change that. We can't affect that, so to speak. But the good thing would have been if that would have happened 10 years ago. But it's happening now, and I think it's good because otherwise you will be dependent on that. Otherwise, it will imply that it's not the universities themselves that are doing the strategic work. And that's a problem. But now that's changing, and we also have the work on different strategic areas that Lund are working on, Uppsala, and basically every university in Sweden now have a strategic plan where they try to make prioritization within the university, and I think that's very good that they're doing that.
Thank you so much for such an interesting talk, and also for taking the time to come and speak to us and hear what our perspective is. One thing that you said that I'm interested in is that the problem is there is a lack of clarity in the track. But I would maybe suggest that there isn't so much a lack of clarity. I mean, once I came here and learned how to read Swedish and use Google Translate, I did understand what the national rules were. But there seemed to be a mismatch between the medical faculty and what their expectations and what works for them, and what the government rules are on top, to the point where the medical faculty no longer uses the bull positions. This mismatch between the two organizations has then led to a lot of unclarity personally, because there are no bulls. So then everyone at Lund Medical Faculty is using an alternative which has no regulations, no plans. And so I think it's really encouraging to hear you say that you are working with the medical faculty to make changes, because that communication between the government and the different arms of the university is what will enable any regulations to actually create clarity. So I think that's great. Yeah. Thanks.
I would like to actually add to that as well. It's so true. Like if the mismatch between the university and the government is so strong, like it has been, NGF published a couple of years ago that for the title of postdoc there was 23. Was it 23 or something around that position titles for the exact same title, because every single one was trying to get around some rule that was in place to just provide opportunities to keep our researchers. So yeah. That's a very important point, that it can be clear, but there is this huge mismatch between the rules, and we're trying our best to make it work. But I think we need more alignment between the two.
Yeah,
right?
But I also think that, I think that's changing now in the system, and that's a good thing, that there is more discussion about that recruitment is a strategic question for university and for a faculty. It's research infrastructure that's very, very important. Recruiting the right people is very, very important. If you have those two tools, then you will have a very high quality research at your place. So it's a matter of, as economists, I would say, selection. We will have the right people to come into the system, and that stays, and the matter of infrastructure. I think that's so. I think the discussion is important in itself, but I also think that we have the rules from the government, but then the implementation is at the university level, and there is also, and this is maybe not particularly for the medical faculties, but there is a lack of competition and there is a lack of internationalization in the recruitment process in Sweden. We have too much of internal recruitment, and that's a problem. There's a lack of mobility and too much internal recruitment, and I know it's a tough thing to say, but I'm standing for it, so to speak.
One more question, I think.
Thank you very much for a very nice talk. I reflected on one thing that I think is that you said that is very, very important, and that is quantity versus quality. Because I think this is also something that we need to consider both in the recruitment and in the merits. Because if we really want to achieve that, you said the money is put in, but we don't get the output, and how do we really, because that takes sometimes some years to really get this one paper instead of having the 3 papers with a lower end. But when we apply for position or we apply for funding, it's still like you maybe didn't get that yet, or you don't. Is that something from the governmental that is also emphasizing on both from the funding agencies and at university in general? I know Faculty of Medicine is working right now quite much on this, that we should change more to see on the quality. But is that something on a governmental base that is also emphasized down to funding agencies and universities?
To some extent, we have that in the system. For example, if you have the ERC grants, for example, I mean that's the highest level, so to speak. But still, those panels they only emphasize quality, and they are not that much interested in quantity. But we need to have a system where that kind of, I mean, you can't have ERC quality on everything, of course, but that kind of perspective, it has to trickle down in the system as a whole. But I think that as a politician, it's not my role to, in detail, decide what should the merits be in economics and sociology and medicine. I think that's too much. But you hear what I'm saying. I think that we need to have a discussion about quality and quantity, and I think that's and I think that it's happening. It should. I think it needs to become. I think this discussion has to be taken now, and I think we need to do with things a bit quicker in the Swedish system than we are traditionally are doing.
Okay, I think we have to end there. I think just as sort of a last comment, I think at least one thing that everyone here agrees on is that increasing clarity would be good. Yeah. I think that's quite uncontroversial.
Yeah.
And I also I'm happy that you want to discuss, and I would also like to say that Future Faculty and NGF were happy to discuss with politicians. I think NGF was very happy with this change to 5 to 7 years. And it's something that we have argued for years, and it actually came as a bit of a surprise that this change was coming. We didn't know, but we were happy to see it.
Yeah,
and we hope for continued discussion.
I'm listening to you guys. That's why. Yeah.
You were. We felt that, but we didn't know. But thank you again, Mats. And here is a small gift for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Well, if we stand here, I think we'll be in the screenshot anyway.
Yeah, of course.
You can watch the rest of the discussion later online.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Mats. And now there's some coffee outside, so we'll have a stretch our legs, and then we continue at 10:15. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Our next speaker is Sanna Wolk. She's president of SULF, which is the biggest union for employees at the medical faculty.
Oh, it is here.
I think so.
Oh, okay, great.
You have a PhD in law, and you're a professor in law. And I also looked you up a little bit online, and I saw that you had worked in both Lund and Stockholm and Uppsala. That's quite rare, I think, but impressive. And I also from a podcast I found, Högskolepodden, I also heard that you have actually had 10 years where you
I actually looked it up just now. It was 11 years and 1 month.
Yeah. So 11 years and 1 month of insecure positions, and I think, I mean, that's something that many in our audience recognizes this long path to tenure. And you ended up going to a law firm and then to eventually as president for SULF.
Yes.
So I look forward to hearing what you have to say, and if you have any solutions for the problems in academia that we have talked about. So
thank you very much, and thank you all for letting me speak here. And as I mentioned, it took me 11 years and 1 month after my dissertation to get a position. And it was actually here at Lund University I had my first position as employed full-time. And I think it's terrible that it should be like that. I was very good to actually raise money, fundings. So for me, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it felt quite easy compared to others. But it shouldn't be like that. And what we have nowadays at universities, nearly 60% of the fundings are external. And this means that 60% of the positions at the universities are temporary. And if you look at the numbers, you can see that in the career path that no, it's not 60% that actually are temporary. What we also have, we have this position that you are getting employed, but if you don't raise your fundings, then you will be unemployed. So it's exactly the same as if you don't have a position at the university. And we think this is terrible conditions, and we have seen for years, and we're working hard, but we can't get the politicians to understand it, that we have to raise the fundings from the governments to the universities. We can't be so dependent of external money and external ideas, I would say. At this time, we have a government, we have had it previous, that are keen also to get into the state fundings and decide what we're going to do at the universities. And that's also problematic. We had this, they're going to talk about this in Stockholm today. 2 days ago, we had a report from the Universitetskanslersämbetet, I don't know actually what it's called in English. And the biggest problem was the fundings. And that is a direct problem about academic freedom and how to handle research at universities and where we are heading in Sweden. So I think that was very, very interesting. And we have old reports that are indicating this. And now we have proof also from another authority in Sweden that this is where we are heading. We have a really, really problematic situations in Sweden. And because the environment also, when you have to try to raise fundings, you're getting a very big competition between each other. You don't want to collaborate. You can say you want to collaborate, but still is always, I have to find money for me because I want to be in the academia. And that's also a very problematic environment in the academia, because the ground in the academia is actually to cooperate and exchange ideas and exchange results and everything and work together. But the system we have today is not promoting that. The system we have today is promoting to be an individual and just thinking about yourself. So we think that is very, very problematic. And we would like that we had more permanent jobs in Sweden. But this government and the government before have not had that as a priority. They're talking about that we want to have permanent jobs. We want to be leading in the world with our research and also education. But they are not doing anything to make a real permanent change. That is also what we have seen when we have done studies, is that the persons in academia that this is most problematic with is with women and international researchers. It's problematic for all groups, but it's especially problematic for women and international researchers to actually get a permanent contract at Swedish universities. Then we also have seen that junior researchers, and it doesn't matter if you're international or national, or if you're a man or a woman, it's also very, very problematic to get the postdoc research and also after the postdoc to actually get into the academic career and in the area that you would like to do research in. It's a little bit more easy if you don't care what you're going to do with research. You just want to be at Lund University or something. But when you want to decide that you have this idea and you want to test your ideas and you want to work with it, it's very, very difficult. And it takes time to do good research. And you need to also have the possibility to fail. But we don't have the possibility to fail today. Because if you don't have a permanent contract, you can't fail. You must win. And that's also very problematic because then you are just running for the research that is easy. You know, I'm going to get the quick fix. It's like the social media. I'm going to get the quick fix. I'm going to get this article out and I'm going to get new fundings. But that's also problematic because we don't get the depth that we really, really need in research. And especially if we want to be ranked really, really high internationally. So what we can see from our perspective that we are actually decreasing slowly but steady what we're doing and the outcome, I would say, from our researchers. And that's not good. Then we also have seen that, I haven't seen it really here yet at the medical, but we see it in Karolinska, that they want to fire all the old professors. And the problem with that is that they are actually the one who has the fundings. They have a lot of fundings. And they now want to say that you're too old, now we're going to quit everybody. At Karolinska Institute, it is, I think it's the majority, it's about 80 positions, professors, that they want to end the contracts. And it's a lot of millions. But they think that we're going to get these millions. But they are usually connected to the individual. So they can't just say, we're going to fire you and now we're going to take your fundings. So it's a very interesting situation because that was what they were thinking. Now we're going to get more younger researchers. But that's not the right way because this is all external fundings. It's not state fundings. And they are always connected to a researcher, not the university. What we believe also that stipendium scholarships is not the way forward at the academia, and but what we are seeing, and that's very positive, that is actually decreasing. So that's a very, very positive trend. We have some external funders who still have stipends and scholarships, but they also recommend that they are sending into the system and get an employment contract, not permanent and temporary, but employment contract, so they get into the social security system. Because otherwise you are not in the social security system. You're totally outside. What we also have seen is, as I mentioned, the academic freedom and the quality that we also see and decreasing, and especially for the younger ones, that the younger ones who's actually going to be the ones who are going to take after us older, and it's going to build the new foundation for the new research, the new ideas that really have to be tried and proven in different areas. But it's very, very challenging now, especially that when we dictated what is an important research issue nowadays. Is it artificial intelligence, or is it climate, or is it something else? Artificial intelligence and climate, we have already had funding for that for 30 years. It's not a new research area. Now it's just a hot topic, but that's 30 years later. And what we need to gain fundings for, the politician doesn't know. It is the researcher who knows that. And that's why we should also apply fundings for. And the politicians and also the funders should trust in us, what we think this is the future. Because we can see that in a lot of other research areas nowadays. That was actually founded 30 years ago. What we also seen a problematic that we don't have a standardization and transparent path of career at Swedish universities. It's very different from university to university. It's even very different if you go down to just at the faculty level from different faculties at one university. And we would actually like to have more instruction and directions how the career path should be. And it's also, I would say, a mainstream way, that it's only one way how it should be. But we don't have that, and we don't see any work really at the universities to have it. So that is very, very important. Our proposed solution is to actually to make a standard. This is the career way at universities, and also put it in the law. Now we have just the positions in the law, but not how the way to it. We also need to establish support systems at universities. The universities has to have stronger support system how to have an academic career. In some universities they have strong, but in some they don't. So that we can see as a general. And we also emphasize that we should collaborate, both the employers and the employer, because we have different views how to have the support systems. Then we also need to have stable and long-term fundings, governmental, not external. That is also at least that we have 50-50, not as is now 60-40. So we have to get more funding from the government, and they are stable and for the long haul. And this is also, if the fundings we have now, is also that they are not really marked to researchers. It's some educations, and the universities can decide, should it be to the younger, to the older, should it be to some group. And we think it's also important to that some of these fundings are marked for the youngers, so they get the stability and get the career at the universities. And this is to have employed postdocs probably on a temporary contract, but still employed and not running for fundings. So that is our proposed solutions in this area. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Sanna. So we're a little bit behind schedule, but that's okay, and I think we still have some time for questions.
Yes.
And so if I can begin with one. So I mean, one important thing that you emphasize is job security, right? Yeah. And how far do you think that should go? So I mean, many people are longing for a tenured position, and really hunting that, and then when you reach that point, maybe you can take a breath, and you don't have to apply for as much external funding and so on. And maybe sometimes you stop applying for funding. Is what should happen in those cases? Do you have?
What our position is that for all researchers at university should have a permanent employed position. We don't like the positions that when you are employed, and if you don't raise fundings, then you are going to be kicked out. We don't think that's a solution. There are discussions, and we have the system that you can have non-permanent position. I think it's for 5 years. There are discussions to prolong it to 8 years as a postdoc. We think it should be permanent from the beginning, but this is a good step forward to actually get into the system and make a career. But those are also usually connected to what somebody else thinks is important research. So it's not a free research area, I would say. And that is the most important, that we have free research. Because I think it's the young people who actually knows where we're heading, not we old ones. And the idea should be picked up. What we have as the old one, we have the knowledge how to make research and help the younger to make good research. But they usually have the idea, and we can help them with that and give our knowledge to them. So I think it's very, very important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions in the audience?
Yes, Magnus.
Magnus.
Magnus is an interesting example, I would say. He's never going to become professor. And he's probably a better researcher than I.
Thank you, Sanna. And as always, it's inspiring to hear you talk. I just want to follow up on what Anders asked. So I agree. So if you say that we get permanent positions, it's still important that we develop as researchers and teachers within the university, so that we don't stop applying for funding just because we're not exposed to challenges. So what's your idea, and what's SULF's idea how to evaluate development or achievements also when you're on a permanent position, and to progress?
I think that's a difficult question, because it's such an individual question, how you are as individual. If you're happy with what you have, or if you want more. And we can't decide in one way or other what kind of persons we should have at universities. So I don't have any solutions on that. I just hope that if you have employment, that you do the best to also seek external fundings to get in, for example, more doctoral students and some more postdocs who hasn't had the possibility as you have had. So I hope that everybody is working hard to do that. But this is not something at SULF that we can say, do it. Because our position is everybody should have permanent contracts. Yes?
Nicole?
If my microphone, yeah, tack. I have a comment that may turn into a question. Something that I'm thinking about a lot from what you have said altogether is that I'm worried that we will lose competition or the feeling of competition by making everything so comfortable. Of course, I want to feel more comfortable as a postdoc, but I see it sometimes in PhDs together in Sweden, comparing from my experience in Australia, where we were always evaluated and we could fail our PhD at 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So we always made sure we worked to our best if we wanted to keep our PhD going. So I guess this could be a question of is SULF making sure they keep this in mind, the balance of requiring understanding that researchers do require a little bit of competitiveness to make sure that we are producing quality research.
Yes, I agree. But as a trade, as a union, we can't. We are not a trade union, but as a union, we can't have that criteria, because from our perspective, it's more to look at the employment solution. Of course, as a person, I hope that we have a system like that. But from a union perspective, it's more important that everybody has a secure position at the universities.
Alina?
I hope this works.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for it was very clear. So imagining like from now to the time when everyone would be in a perfect world on a permanent position, what do you think is what are the steps to get there, and what can we as part of being future faculty do to improve our own situation? Like, I feel kind of that I cannot take action to improve this. So what would your suggestion be?
I understand that, because this, how can we take action is, I think we need to take action more straightforward. We need to be in the opinion. We need to write articles. We need to be out there and discussing it. We can't just sit inside the university. This need to be society questions, because this is a society question. This is so important for our businesses that we have good research. It's so important for our youngsters that they're actually entering universities that has good research, because then we're going to have good education too, that is up to date. So we need to get out to society that this is a problem for our society, and then I think we can get the politicians, because the politicians are not interested. They haven't been for a long time, I would say.
Thank you. So if I may, one last question.
Yeah.
So I mean, this event is called Stability and Flexibility, and I think. I mean, you have this. You had heard several comments already about you get comfortable, and I mean, I like being here in Lund, and if I have a permanent position, I will probably stay. But how can we at the same time give that stability, and also, because I think you agree that moving around is probably
I
good
think
for
flexibility
research.
is very good. It's I've been at 3 universities: Stockholm, Uppsala, and Lund, and every university is very, very different. And it's good to learn different systems, because that's what we have within. And I think that could be easy. An easy solution would be that we have this as a career path. And if I have a position here, I can exchange it with another position for 5 years at another university, and then you have to have some carrot to it. You get perhaps a little bit more paid or something, or you can have that you can move your family with you, because usually it's this. We are a very long country, and it's a big step to move from Lund up to Stockholm, especially if you have a family. But if you have some characters, I think we can have a working system. Not for everybody will not go for it, but I think more people would then move to another university for some time.
I have one last question.
Yes.
Postdocs are a kind of a weak link in this whole academic system. They are on very short contracts, at least 1 to 2 years. At max, you can go up to 4 years. And it's a very short time for them to produce high-quality research and also to apply grants. So what is the take from the SULF on this?
Yeah, we think still that we should have permanent solution, but I would also say that's very difficult, very different from faculty to faculty. For example, in the law field, you can actually produce a lot in 4 years. You become a professor in 4 years if you want to, if you're working hard. But in the medical faculty, it's a very, very short period. So it's so different we are. And so we can't have one solution that fits all. And we have to take in consideration how different research actually works and how you're doing research. If you are, like in law, we are like a one-man island when we're doing research. So that's why it's so quick to do a career there if you want to. But in the medicine faculty and research field, you really need to have this big corporation and groups of researchers. And you're always a little bit a part of it, especially when you're postdoc. And of course, you can't become professor in 4 years. It's going to take you at least 15 years more or even more. So it's very, very different. And we can't, so I don't have one solution for it. But so we really should look how it is at different specific areas in this situation.
Thank you so much, Sanna.
Thank you.
And I have a small gift for you as well from Future Faculty.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next speaker is Mickwitz, who's the Pro Vice Chancellor here at Lund University. you're a professor in sustainability.
Environmental policy, but close enough.
Okay. And you have worked in academia both in Finland and here in Sweden, and right?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, that look made me insecure. But as pro vice chancellor, you have your special priorities is research and career. So you have a good insight into those areas.
You could say it that way as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Per.
Okay, thank you everybody for inviting me here. It's been really interesting to listen to the previous speakers. I'm going to structure my presentation in such a way that I first will raise 3 general points, then I will make some comments on what has been said earlier, and then I will address the questions that we got in advance. But before that, 2 issues. First of all, I want to stress that I'm a member of the central management, the leadership of the university. Many of these issues are the responsibilities of the faculties. So I mean, and we have to work together. This is not just to shift the responsibilities, but if I say sometimes that I think we should do this, it might be actually that Maria gets insulted and said that I'm taking over her role. I'm not, then I just speak as a person. So that, to make that clear. As you introduced me, I'm a professor that has been recruited and internationally from Finland to Lund. So I have that experience. And you mentioned some other things, but I'm also an academic that has applied for many more positions that I have got. So I know how it feels to apply for positions that you don't get. And I think I have learned something from all of these processes. I think it's quite good actually. You shouldn't apply too often. You can't do it every month because it's stressful, but you should do it quite a lot because I think you learn from the processes. So that was one general. I also been hiring people both here in Lund, in Finland, but I also been outside academia hiring people, because a lot of my career I worked for Research Institute, and I'm at the board of Stockholm Environment Institute at the moment. I've been at the scientific committee of the European Environmental Agency. These are organizations that outside universities that actually employ a lot of academics, even professors. So and I think we also need to keep in mind that there is another labor market as well. Okay, the general point. The first one is recruitment and career development. Decisions about that are the most important decisions at the universities. Every other decisions are less important. These are the most, because the people decide what we do here. These are the most important decisions. Still, somehow we do a lot of routine in this, and we do not always. I agree. We have not always seen the strategy, and it's a lot of sort of other things coming in. We actually state in the research strategy of Lund University, it states that the most important resource for research are the people, teachers, researchers, and doctoral students who work with research at Lund University. I fully stand behind this. So this is the first. Second, I think when we discuss about these issues, we have to realize that we are operating in 2 very different worlds at the same time. We can do better, but this is a bit of a tricky situation. On one hand, we are and we want to be a top international university, and there are others in Sweden as well, but I talk from Lund. And we operate at an international global market, and we have to look at what are the recruitment processes in Leuven. And on the other hand, we are part of the Swedish labor market, and we are part of the labor market for an authority in Sweden. And it's much more focused on maximum security, whereas the international market is much more about competition and new possibilities and things. And we have to find the right balance between these 2. We can do better. It's not an excuse, but I think it's important to have. And when you come, as I came from as a Finn to Sweden, there was a lot of this in this mix that I didn't really understand. And so I think there is a lot of things we have to do there. Then I want to say that we had a couple of years ago, we did here in Lund a major evaluation of research quality, RQ20. And the biggest theme actually there was recruitment and career development. And they were actually saying that, well, you should do a lot better. So I think, and we have taken that too. We were still in the process of working it, but it was when the Vice Chancellor decided which are the 5 most important issues that we should work all together on. The first one was this. And we have had different groups, we have projects, we have HR Excellence in Research, with an European award where we have different projects to try to improve. So we are working on this, but we recognize that we need to do a lot better. And I personally, I think the one is our ambitions, we have to be clearer, has to be that we have to recruit more people also from outside. We have been a bit too closed as a system. That does not mean that everybody has to come from outside, with a bigger share. So that is, and we have to have clearer, better, and actually I also think faster processes, because those we compete with outside of academia, I mean, they go for 60 days is the norm after your advertisement. We are happy if we do it in 2 years. Okay, some comments about the what was said, and I will come back to some other things when I answer the questions that we got. First of all, I think it's really important that we keep in mind that we have an organization where, and I think most of you know this, but I want to say, not all postdocs will become bulls. Not all bulls will ever become professors. We have a sort of a pyramid where we have fewer people that are professors, and we will always have, and we will have people coming in from the side. So that is important. We cannot provide secure career paths up to professor for everybody. We will never. And I think it's important to state this so that we don't create the wrong expectations. We can have a lot of more clarity and transparency in the process. So that is important. I want to state very clearly, I don't think that the state should regulate more about careers. I think that we have to have autonomy at the university about the most important strategical decisions, recruitment and career path. But we have to use it much better, and we have to be accountable for how we use it much better. But we should not go to the state, because we have different kinds of politicians and they can change it and it becomes unreliable. We shouldn't trust the state too much. Sorry about that. Okay? This was comments to what was said earlier. Then we had 4 questions. I will try to say standardized career patterns across universities. I'm a bit sort of, first of all, I'm a bit puzzled by this question. First of all, I think we should compare very much internationally. So the international perspective is really important. It's not good if we have a very fixed system of all Swedish universities and different from the international, because then we will not be operating on this international. So that is the first. Second, I think to some degree, I think it's good if we have some common grounds, but I'm not sure. I think if this is, as I think, the most strategically important decision, there might be good that there is also some competition between the universities. So the minister stressed that if in economics, it should either be 5 years limit for bull after PhD or 7 in a certain subject area in economics. I'm not sure, but I haven't thought enough about it. I might be wrong. But I think that if one university, say, Umeå, in economics, they think that, well, in order for us to extract the best, maybe if everybody else is having 5, we have 7, and we give people then, maybe they should be able, maybe we should. But I'm not really sure. But I think the international perspective is the most important there. I want to stress this difference between subject areas. It was a bit here, but we have seen it very clearly here. We have in many, many areas, it's really important, and you get a lot of applications for postdocs. But in other areas, in commercial law, we can get nobody, because they said, well, we want to do research and we accept to have 1/3 of what we get in a law firm, but to just have a postdoc position for that short, no. So if you want to have, you have to go immediately to a bull position in those areas. And this is just examples that at different stages we have to recognize this. And I think since different universities have different profiles, we cannot standardize too much either. Okay, that was the first question. The second question was about standardized promotion criteria. I think actually I think it's rather impossible to standardize the criteria across universities or subjects. However, I think what kind of merits we assess, that is really important. And I think there was this discussion about going from quantity to quality. We fully support this, and we are working, and there is an international movement in this direction. And again, we say it very clearly also in the research strategy that work is done which aims to broaden the merits that are recognized, broaden them, and second, to design less quantitative and more qualitative assessments of merits and expertise. And we look at research, teaching, external engagement, contribution to open science, leadership abilities, and then and then the capability to contribute to a good working environment. We want to have good colleagues. I think traditionally this is something that has been looked at too little for the research environment. I think the situation is better in many cases than what is sometimes the picture that is given when it comes, for example, to assessing the quality. In the later stages, when if you have just one candidate or you have a few candidates, I think we read and assess the most important publication. However, if you have 150 candidates, in the early, you cannot really go in that, and then you have to read the CV or other sort of. There is a tricky thing, but I definitely think that it's in. And I think the most important thing is that in many fields, and actually more fields, we collaborate. There are many authors for a journal. It's not about is a journal article important or good. It's about what is your contribution to that, and what can you really do, and show that you have done and can do. But we have to be then much more transparent and communicate better what are the criteria in different stages. When I came to Lund, I became director for International Institute. And I think it's really important that we don't only communicate with written things. We have to collect people and discuss it, because when you come from different countries and strange countries like Finland or Egypt or wherever, you don't understand, you don't read the text, even if it's in English, in exactly the same way, because you have a different background. So we need to have discussions about these things. And we should not be afraid of having these discussions with groups, and we have to be very honest. We have never give promises you can't keep. So I had with all the postdocs and with all the PhDs, and I said, most of you will never have a position at Lund University, but we will make sure that you have a good journey and that you get skills that are valued in the labor market internationally and at other universities in Sweden. And that is also, career paths has to be about that. We can never ever guarantee anybody to become professor in Lund. It depends on who else will be applying for that position, things like that. But we can guarantee that we do everything that you get good skills and abilities so that you are really attractive and different labor market. I hope I'm not over time. I wanted to say equal opportunities was a really important thing. There were two aspects of it, international, and then it was about parents. If we come to international, I think this is a major problem. It's as much, when I have been now 5 years in Sweden, I think it's much bigger than I thought in the beginning. And I think we have the Swedish, there are Swedish strange practices that are not obvious to everybody else. And the Swedish funding system is, it takes much longer time for people who come from abroad to understand that. And many people say that it's much easier to apply for ERC than to apply from the Swedish funders. We have to align this better. I think we have to align these better and not think that we can do everything separately. When it comes to this thing about parents, I think it's extremely important that you can combine family life and be a researcher. But I don't know exactly how. I think we do it quite well in Sweden, but I think we can improve many things, but I'm not an expert, so I will leave that. But then I will come to one of the most, I think, important thing is about external funding. And the previous speaker said that we should all have permanent posts and we should have a lot of money from the government. Yes, I would like to have that, but I don't see it happening. So I think it's much more about, the way I see the future, the near future, I mean 15 years from now, we will have more external funding and less direct government funding. And then the question is, how do we operate better with external funding? And I think that is the important thing. And then the way I see it is that it differs a lot from faculties and subject areas, but also research environments. But generally the way I see it is that we need to have more of a collective responsibility than just being the individual getting the funding or not. However, in that, everybody needs to contribute also to, in a research, to getting the funding, and you need to, has to give the skills of getting funding early on, because that is a key skill. If you want to do research, you need to have the funding for your great idea. I want to also stress that we often talk about external funding as being something bad. I don't think it is. It brings a lot of dynamics into the university. We are very conservative organizations, and if we would just decide on the internal money, we would probably do the same things as 100 years ago. But we need, research has developed, and most new research and most really innovative research groups I know at any universities have really developed because they have got external funding for it. So we need to use that. I think I have no clue about the time at this moment. I have one more last. There was this thing about should we have postdocs on stipends? I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you, Per. Yeah, so we are a bit over time, but we'll cut the break a bit short. But I think we should have time for a couple of questions. So anything from the audience? Arlind.
Thank you for sharing your vision about the career paths. I'm wondering, because you did say that it's really important for the university to have autonomy over the strategy, for example, for hiring, but you also say that we need to prepare for more external funding. So I'm wondering what the university leadership's stance is on the distribution between core funding and grant funding. We just heard from the union that they very much want 50-50 model.
We have many times we have stressed in all communication to the government, we want more core funding, and nobody listens to us. We have talked with the politicians. I see no possibility that they will listen to us in the near future. So yes, but the position of the university, yes, we want more core funding, absolutely. If we would have one thing, but I don't see it happening. And therefore, I think the question is, on one hand, we might be able to have a discussion with the politicians of how should they distribute the national competitive funding. I would like to see more prioritization and bigger amounts and longer term. Then we can bring a bit of more stability into that. And then I think it's really crucial that we focus a lot on EU funding, because we cannot trust the Swedish state. And I come from Finland. I would say you can trust the Finnish state much less. And in Finland, what happened, I mean, and if you look at Denmark, in Sweden we have been lucky. The resources for research and for universities have been increasing almost. This is the first time, the first year actually, since the Second World War, when we have less resources for basic funding actually than before. But in Sweden and in Finland and Denmark, there have been drastic cuts. And in University of Helsinki, 30% of their base funding was cut in 1 year. They had to fire 500 people. Who had the most secure employment? Those with most external funding.
Thank you, Per. I think we should probably move on, and we have to start again soon. So if you want to stretch your legs for 2 minutes, and then do that. And I also want to give you this gift from Future Faculty.
You.
So thank you, Per.
Bribes.
Thanks. Yeah, so a 2-minute leg stretch. So if you just want to stand up and stretch your legs.
Welcome back. So my name is Ramesh Vetukuri. I work as a chairperson for SLU Future Faculty and the vice chair for NJ. Today I would like to introduce our Dean of Landscape Architecture, Horticulture and Crop Production Sciences in SLU, Christina Lunner Kolstrup. She has been instrumental in bringing a lot of reforms to make this career path very clear, at least in our faculty, and also promoting early career researchers. We had a recent call for PhD student support. Like 10 full-time PhD students are being financed by the faculty. And then she has been instrumental in bringing a number of these reforms. I leave the stage to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ramesh, for the introduction. And also, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to actually participate today. And it's been so interesting to hear the previous speeches as well. When I received the invitation, I started thinking a lot of the topic, because this is an extremely important topic. And I just couldn't help think about my own academic career path or not. I started as a research assistant on a temporary position. And I didn't really knew what to expect from academia. But after 2 years, I got the possibility to start as a PhD student. And that was an eye-opener, both related to understanding how much I didn't understand and how much new things I had to learn. When I finished my PhD, I pretty much knew what I wanted to continue doing research and teaching. And of course, I also started to think about what is the next step in my wish for academic achievements. After my PhD position, I got a researcher position. And that you all know that it is a position which is so much depending on external funding. And actually, if I might say, I was quite good at it at the time. But it was stressful. Always having, next, there. It was stressful. Always having to think about how could I get funding for my position, and alongside also thinking about meriting myself for the next step. And the previous speech, Mats, the minister, also talked about that there could be differences between universities when it comes to how much teaching, how much research that we have. And the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences is 80% research, 20% teaching, a little bit depending or different among different departments. But we are heavily depending on external funding. 8 years later, I defended my thesis. I became associate professor, and I still had a researcher position, meaning not one of the positions in the tenure track system. And it is really difficult, as I experienced, to climb in the career ladder that we have at today's universities, meaning that promotion, at least at our university, SLU, is very rare, both regarding senior lecturers and professorships. It is recruitments. But what happened after that, my associate professorship? Which pathways did I consciously take, choose, or why? You can say that being an associate professor, there was no possibility for me to be professor. And did I want to continue chasing funding? In my research, I actually focused on physical and psychosocial work environment among those who are working in agriculture. And also focused on leadership and organizational development. So that actually became my new career path. I decided actually to leave research and teaching and followed the path of leadership and management. So I was head of department for 5 years, and then for 2.5 years ago, I became dean of the faculty. That is also interesting because when I took on these management leadership positions, I was also asked by colleagues, how could you leave academia? Must you sacrifice yourself? I'm sorry, I see leadership and management as also a career path. And do I have any regrets? No, I don't. I want to comment on what Per also mentioned previously regarding, can we make sure that all our PhD students, or all our master students, for instance, can be PhD students, that all our PhD students can be postdocs and they can advance in the system to professor? No, it's not realistic. I do really agree with Per. Also, the point where I understand, and I can also feel deep in my heart, because I've been on the same road myself, that we really would like to have more secure employments. But I'm also trying, or you can say that I see in the future that we will not get more state funding. We will be even more dependent on external funding. So to that, I also agree with Per. Well, this was one type of reflection on career paths in academia based on my own experiences. But also addressing the topic of today, I also got into really deep thinking about career paths for early career academics and linked to the concepts of stability and flexibility. We have also heard from previous speeches today that the balance between flexibility and stability in one's career path is delicate. In the never-involving landscape of academia, these two elements are not merely desirable traits, but they are crucial, actually, for successful academic pursuits to build. So if we consider the concept of flexibility, I believe that flexibility in academia is perceived as the ability to adapt, also to embrace change, and to thrive among uncertainty. It's about being open to new ideas, to methodologies, to perspectives. And in the academic world, flexibility, early career researchers have to navigate this complexity of interdisciplinary research. And they have to collaborate across boundaries and also to innovate ways to push the boundaries of knowledge. That's what we do. It also empowers ways that push the boundaries of knowledge. But flexibility alone is not sufficient when we talk about young early careers. We need to look at this stability as well, take that into consideration. And you could say that is the other side of the coin, providing the necessary foundation upon which our academic accomplishments can flourish. Stability in academia is the assurance of that we have a supportive environment and also a continuity of resources and the security of tenure. It encompasses also the stability of funding, institutional support, and the career pathways. And without stability, the search for knowledge becomes precarious and hinders from constant worry of uncertainty and instability. So how do we actually find the right balance between flexibility and stability in the academic career path for you young talents? I think that we must recognize that flexibility and stability are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they complement each other and they can reinforce each other when they are properly aligned. A flexible academic career path allows young talents to explore diverse research interests, adapt to changing circumstances, and seize also new opportunities, while stability provides the necessary framework for a long-term growth and also productivity, security, and stability as well. I also reason that we could advocate for policies and practices, which have been mentioned previously also, that promote both this flexibility and stability. But it also implies that we must foster a culture of collaboration and also interdisciplinary exchange, both interdisciplinary and international exchange, supporting the different initiatives that promote this work-life balance that we have been hearing about as well, being parent and a young researcher, but also the mental well-being of us, because it is stressful with the insecurity, you can say, and uncertainty. So we could advocate for sustainable funding models that could ensure stability of research programs and academic institutions. But as we heard previously also, it doesn't seem that the government is actually listening very much to us. All universities in the budget for this year got a cut of 11%. We also saw that the government actually withdraw some of the funding for research in low and middle income countries. So we have a government that really wants to govern also us universities, and that could jeopardize the academic freedom. I also think that when we talk about young talents, that it is important, and we need to recognize also that we have mentorship and we have support networks, both for our national young talents and definitely for our international talents. It is not easy to move to another country. I'm Danish myself, so I come across the water. But that was before the academic career I took. But it's not easy to move to another country and finding out how the different systems works. So having peers, having mentorship, I believe is important. They can play a crucial role when it comes to guidance, advice, support, and also helping with practical matters, actually. I also think that we should encourage to foster a mindset of adaptability and resilience and lifelong learning. That could mean including mobility. That we embrace change as an opportunity for growth, seeking out new challenges, and remaining also steadfast in our commitment to advance knowledge and make positive impact on our society. I think this mobility is crucial, important. I do agree also that we see the trend that internal recruitments happens quite often. We need new blood in as well. But if we turn the focus a bit also and scrutinize the Swedish context in general terms, so to speak, we could argue in Sweden that we have inconsistent and unstable career tracks for our early career researchers. I do believe so. I reason that we need to acknowledge, but not necessarily accept, the reality of the current academic landscape. We always need to question. Even though the government don't listen to us very much, we shouldn't give up. We still should thrive for improvement. I often hear among early career researchers at SLU that they also find themselves that they navigate in the model or the mess, as we heard previously, in these career tracks because it's inconsistent and it's not transparent. And that the opportunities and advancements are limited, and the path to tenure is a troublesome way. We could say at our university, bearing in mind that we have 80% research and we definitely have 60% external funding, we have a guarantee funding for our higher positions, that a recruited professor is guaranteed 100% governmental funding if they don't have any external funding. We do have such also for promoted professors, but we don't have very many promoted professors. It's almost impossible at our place. We have for senior lecturers, we also have some guarantee governmental funding, 20-25%, if 25 if you have a docentship. And then we have for a previous career position, which we called researchers FLK. They get 15% or so. That actually, we believe in the management that it actually hinders us from promoting people, because it is a very huge guarantee that we need to secure for the positions. I think also that the lack of stability that we can see not only undermines the morale and the motivation for young researchers, but also the well-being. And I think that is extremely important. It's not just that we should be good at work, do a lot of good results, but we also have to have a balance, work-life balance. We need to work for many years, and we need also to be able to do it. I think that we could also, I think it is important that we stress and advocate for more transparency and more stability. It is, how is the time? It is totally off.
It's a bit off.
Okay. Yes, I can minimize it a little bit. That I think that we should invest in initiatives that could promote international collaboration. I like the idea of actually more mobility within Sweden as well. We need to work much more with research partnerships, both nationally and international. We know that the large calls, the large programs involves, or you can say require, that we have a lot of collaboration. And these large EU grants can actually make some security and long-term funding. And I think that we need to be very creative in the way that we look for external funding. Most of all, I think that in order to help also you as early career researchers, that we from the university support you when you come, both from national but also internationally, definitely. And we actually have at our university, we have one, you can say, faculty officer who is focused on helping international, both students but also employees, getting into both the university and also in the society as such. And that we also are in this individualistic world that we live in academia, that we need to help and support each other through peers and mentorship. So I think I will stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have time for 1 or 2 questions. So I would just like to ask one question. SLU as such has slightly different mandate compared to other universities in terms of development research or serving the agriculture community. And do you think that we should have a kind of standardization of career paths similar to other universities? Or do you agree to that point, or as a member of the management?
Yes. I think it could be a good idea if it was standardized. What is much more close to my heart, actually, is that what I see is we talked about the competence pyramid, or you can call it the competence diamond, whatever you want to turn it. That there is a lack, or you could say there is a gap between senior lecturer and professors. We need some positions in between, which I argue and advocate quite a lot for, but and maybe hopefully someday it would be. And if it was possible to make it more standardized, so it would be more possible actually to move to different universities, I think it would be a good idea. I see a lot of the applications when it comes to higher positions, as I am chair of the board of higher positions at our faculty. And we can very much see that the new blood is coming in very much when it comes to BUL. We see a trend also that we have a decrease in PhD students' applications, which was one of the reasons why we launched this call for 10 PhD students. The second reason was actually to help the young researchers, because we are so heavily externally funded, and it's difficult to apply for or getting funding for your own salary and a PhD student as well. And especially when FORMAS, which is one of our major financing agencies, we could apply for funding for 3 years. So the 4th year of a PhD student, the department had to actually finance, but they are going to change that now, so it won't be a minor problem. So that was one of the important things to do to actually help that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we also have a small gift from future faculty to you.
Thank you.
So thank you, and we'll have a panel. I mean, it will be a bit shorter than we expected in the end, because we want to end at 12. But we have, thank you, Christina, and we have one more speaker, Madeleine Durbeej-Hjalt. She's a professor in muscle biology and former head of department here at the medical faculty. In 2020, you became Secretary General for Medicine and Health at the Swedish Research Council. So I know you deal with many of these questions on a daily basis and think a lot about them. And I think in the interest of time, I'll let you start right away.
Yes.
So thank you.
And I would also like to thank you for organizing this important event. I just want to give a very brief introduction to the Swedish Research Council. So we are the largest governmental funder in Sweden. So we have an annual budget of 8 billion Swedish crowns. Around 3 billion Swedish crowns goes to research infrastructure, but the rest goes to sort of PIs. Every year we receive 6,000 applications in all different scientific fields. We appoint 900 reviewers, and also some of you have been reviewing for Swedish Research Council, so thank you. And around 80% of our budget goes to bottom-up research. And we do many things, but I'm going to keep this short in the interest of time. But one important task that we have, apart from funding, is that we also analyze condition of the research. We evaluate research, and we also give the government advice on future research policy. And I think that is very relevant for today's theme. So we are a player to talk to when we discuss. You know, we should discuss more with the funder and the universities together. But I also would like to stress some of the prerequisites for research of the highest quality. Now, we heard previously from the minister that the quality of Swedish research is declining, but I would like to stress with this audience that actually there is a high quality of medical research in Sweden. We know this, for example, from the SULF funding system. And of course, if we look at Sweden's citation impact overall, yes, there is a slight decline, but we have remained stable during many years. And we also have to think that this decline that we see in citation impact is also influenced by the strong coming Asian countries that clearly affect, you know, citation impact. So I would still like to stress that Swedish medical research is of strong quality. But again, if we wanted to continue to be a world-leading research and innovation country, the Swedish research system needs to be further improved. And we've heard also from some of the other speakers, yes, we need long-term funding for research and also research infrastructure. We need also a high degree of international collaboration. That is what will enhance the Swedish quality further. And also we need attractive career for the best researchers and attractive research environments and so on and so forth. So we can certainly improve the Swedish system. And I just would like to show and share with you the grand career path within medicine and health at the Swedish Research Council. So we have this sort of career ladder. So you can start with applying for international postdoc grant. Then when you come back from your international postdoc year, then applicants can or grantees can apply for starting grants, and then after 4 years apply for project grants. And we also have another grant form for researchers in the clinic, research time in a clinical environment, so that researchers can increase their clinical competence but also do research at the same time. And then we have a couple of excellence grants. For example, the consolidated grant that is aimed at younger researchers, the best young researchers. And for the best senior researchers, we also have a grant form that is distinguished professor. I wanted to share with you also some of the approval rates, but I think I will skip this, and instead I can mail out this presentation for those who are interested. But I want to address some challenges that we see, for example, when it comes to international postdoc, because we have seen after the pandemic a decline in the number of applications. This year it was actually the number of applicants returned to how it was before the pandemic, so it will be interesting to see whether this holds up. But we know that some of the young researchers cannot apply for international postdocs. For example, due to family reasons, or if you are a clinician, it's hard for a clinician to go abroad for several years. So the grant form that we have may not be feasible for all the young researchers. And we also know that there is a challenge to cover the high cost of a stay abroad at the prestigious university, for example, in the United States. So we are now in the middle of reviewing this grant form, and hopefully we can make adjustments so that it becomes possible for more young and promising researchers to apply and receive postdoc support. We know that this is not only a Swedish phenomenon, and we see this postdoctoral decline internationally. This is just an article from Nature a few days or a month ago. They said they talked about declining postdoc numbers threaten the future of U.S. life science. So these are numbers, for example, from the U.S. National Science Foundation, and we know of similar numbers and postdoctoral decline also from NIH. So I think this is worrisome. Some challenges we can talk about when it comes to the starting grants. Well, we know that the form of employment differs. If you get the starting grant at some universities, you're appointed as an associate senior lecturer or assistant professor. At some other university, employment comes in the form of a researcher. And we also, of course, know that these grants, they do not fully finance the projects. And another problem that is evident here at Lund University Medical Faculty, there is no faculty funding after promotion to lecturer. So these are some problems that we see with these types of grants, and I hope that we can discuss them also later. But these are, very important issues also for the Swedish Research Council, and what we're in the middle of doing now is producing a new report from the Swedish Research Council. It's about external funding grants and attractive employment. It has not been published yet. It's just being finalized as we speak, I think. And the purpose is to get information about the working conditions and opportunities for career development for young researchers. And this report is written by Christina Tegler-Jerselius and her colleagues. And what they do is that they analyze whether there are any patterns in the career development of those who received a grant and compare those to those who did not receive a grant. And they also analyze the extent to which the research grant is used to finance salary costs. And I can very, very quickly show you this slide is busy, I know, but the graphs here show the employment condition for researchers who applied for funding. To the right, you see approved grant, and to the left, there are denied grants. And then you see the different employment forms, professors, lecturers, and so on. And I can basically highlight some of the findings. And those who received a grant, they have to a greater extent a position as an associate senior lecturer or a FOAS, but also a higher proportion of those who received a grant, they are employed as researchers. And this is particularly evident in the later career ages. So, you know, thinking 13 years after you received your PhD, still employed as a researcher. And what we also see that the percentages who eventually became professors is higher among those who received a grant, which we were happy to see this. But of course there are differences between different scientific disciplines. So within natural and engineering sciences, the position as associate senior lecturer turns to a greater extent into a lecture position compared to medicine, where it to a greater extent turns into a researcher position. So I think they have solved it better within the natural and engineering sciences. And within humanities and social science, there's a high percent of the young researchers. They have early on a lecturer position. And they also, compared to medicine and health, they also have a low percentage of active researchers outside the university because their options are limited outside the university. If we then look on how starting grants are used, you can see then from the different scientific discipline the relative distribution of the funds. And very quickly then, the starting grants are used to finance young researchers' own salaries, we know that. But the proportion of the grant used to finance own salary costs, it varies between the different scientific disciplines. So within humanities and science, there is a greater portion of the grant that is used to cover the salaries compared to medicine and health, which is actually the lowest portion. And then we also know, of course, that the grants finance several different types of costs, but that is also a difference between the different scientific disciplines. So, for example, with natural and engineering science, there's a higher proportion of the grant that is used to cover a doctoral student, for example, compared to humanities and science. So there are, you know, important differences between the different scientific disciplines. But I think with this report, what we want to do is we want to create a knowledge base that we can use in a dialogue, because I think we have to have a better dialogue between the funders and the universities, because these attractive conditions for researchers, they are really a shared responsibilities. So with this, I will stop. But I also have this question that maybe we can discuss more when we have the panel discussion, because I said we are in the midst now of reviewing this grant form, international postdoc, and you know how should an attractive postdoctoral grant be designed?
Thank you, Madeleine. And I think I mean we'll have the panel now. I think if I may ask one question.
Sure.
So, I mean, we heard some of the former speakers discuss core funding, and that do you have an opinion? Should there be more core funding to universities and less for the research council?
Yeah, that's sort of a leading question. You know, I'm all for increased external funding, because I really think that it drives scientific quality, because we have, you know, highly regulated and very transparent processes for our peer review. So I think it leads to higher quality science.
Yeah. Okay, but thank you. And you probably have one of these already, but
can never have enough.
No, you can never have enough. Exactly. So now we have 15 more minutes, and if the speakers can come up here, and then we have 15 minutes for questions for any of our speakers. And so Sanna is not here anymore. Maybe she had to rush off. And so I'll take the liberty again to start with a question. So or like a future prediction or wish. So if there's if you could have one sort of concrete change within the next 5 years that would improve conditions for young researchers, what would that be? If it's not more money from the government. Do you want to start, Per?
Well, I think we need to create a better culture where it's more fun to be a researcher. And I mean, it's fun to do the research, but it also has to be, I mean, we talk about so much about it, so burdensome, so stressful, so painful to write applications, for example. But I have a colleague here in Lund who says, she's a professor, but she says that she thinks the most fun thing is to apply for money. When I was her boss, I had to say, you have to limit yourself. She was also very successful. But I think that's the most creative part, because that's when I can develop the new ideas. Then when I get them, then I just execute it. And then when I do it together with other colleagues, we have to develop more fun into the system. It has to be, I mean, we are at the university, we are in academia because it's something we have passion for. That's the most important thing.
Can I add to that? I don't know if I should be standing as a speaker panel or not.
Yeah.
I agree. More fun is a great way to do it, and talking openly about this. That means it would be nice to remove some of those extra responsibilities that we put on. For example, towards the end of my slides, I talked about a lot of these extra chores that we have to do as researchers and the household that we need to do. We need support in the background as ELICA researchers to pick up our deliveries or whatever. I don't know what it's like in other universities, but to take on those little extra bits and pieces that just break up our minds as we go from day to day, going, oh, I want to focus on the research, but no, I need to do X, Y, Z. That has nothing to do with the research. Of course, applying grants is part of that, but we need more support in the background, I think, to make it more fun.
Yeah, and then I actually think, I mean, I used to be head of the department and work in administration. Now I'm sort of on the other side, but I still think that you should go back home to your administrative units and demand that you need this support, actually, because you also pay for it. So your overheads. So demand better help when it comes to your different duties that are not direct research.
Can I comment also on this? I think this is a real concern. And there are different aspects to it, but one part of it is that we want, and I think it should be academia to be very inclusive. We have decisions that everybody gets heard on, and then we involve everybody in decision making. But this then results in that people like me in the university management and department, we tend to send too many things down. So I send it to the deans. I got this questionnaire from the ministry from the department, and we should answer it. Then I send it to all the deans. Then send it to all the heads of department. They send it, and then we involve everything. Somebody should stop and say, well, okay, maybe I just use 10 minutes. I might give not the perfect answer, but I save everybody else time, and we should do that more. And then at some point we do it too much, and then somebody comes and complain, you are not democratic enough, but we have to take that risk. So that is one part of it. But then there are some household things that we have to do, and when we have to just sort of see when do we do it, I mean, and have periods when we don't do it, we just focus, and others when we take up a bit more, and then we have to see that we learn, and that it's also fun to be on a evaluation panel or reviewer for the funder or something like that.
I also want to comment on what you said, because I think you are right to a large degree. We know that our government, they want to decrease the administration at our universities, and I also tend to see that we get more and more tasks. It could be evaluations, it could be referrals, and a lot is coming to us that we are very good at delegating to departments as well. But I actually also think that there is a systemic failure in all of this, and that has to do with that Sweden is a country which has very many laws. We are very bureaucratic, over-bureaucratic, I would say, and maybe we need to look over what are these household tasks that we actually should do.
Yeah, just improves the clarity of the responsibility of each person that's in our whole academic system, right? So, yeah.
So I will ask a bit of a question that's not listed there. So there is this is for every panel member. There is there is an issue now that there would be a reform in the Swedish funding system, that they will shut down or the existing funding and open up new. But what worries for me is that by the time the new ones come, I don't know how much lag period we'll have, and for the researchers, especially the early career researchers, to understand the new system, and then we might have problems in getting funding or like to understand things. Are the universities prepared for that? And also, what is your take from the VR on this?
But it's very important to stress that no decision has been taken to restructure the funding system in Sweden. It has been a national inquiry, and a report was submitted in early fall last year, and they suggested that instead of VR there will be a new science agency, and there will be an agency for strategic research, and then an innovation agency. But this is just a suggestion, and this national inquiry report, it has been sent out for consultation. So all the funders and university, they have replied to this consultation. So no decision has been taken, and if there will be a restructure, we will probably know maybe in the upcoming research bill. So don't worry now, because we don't know that this is going to be taken into effect, so to say.
This is just to have a good preparation, not to have like a COVID panic mode. That's why I have raised the question.
But I can say, I mean, if you look at the report in this national inquiry, I mean, for the Swedish Research Council, they proposed, I would say, minor changes. So we, personally, it will be after I have resigned as a Secretary General. But I would be. We're not that worried.
I think I'm not that worried about these structures, and I think that is not the most important for most researchers either. I am much more worried about other things. So I think that we will probably have a period when we will have less resources for sort of general research, and we will have more directed to some areas, and we will have, if you see the general economic debate in Sweden, we have a lot of more resources for defense and security issues, and so I think these are having more impacts, and I think as researchers, if you have good ideas, you should look also more broadly about where can you finance your ideas. I stress European funding all the time because I think that's really important, but also Wallenberg funding and otherwise are good opportunities, and you will always in the systems find good ways. Then you have to adapt a bit, and I hope that there will be changes so that more funders will have longer projects and bigger projects and things like that. That means that less of you will get funding, but I think it will result in better research.
Christina?
Yes, I'm not that worried either about the new funding agency system. As you said, it's just a report, and all the universities have given answers to what they believe, and I don't think that there are very many universities who did approve of it. One good thing was that it actually would make the application forms more transparent and also aligned. today it's very many different systems when you apply for funding. What I'm more worried about is actually that the government, the government that we have today, want to govern us much more, and I think that that's my worry, that they will trespass the academic freedom and wants to govern us to a large degree. I think that's problematic.
Thank you. Per?
Just a comment on that. I think we have had in Sweden quite a lot of steering of the research actually from the government. Compared to the other Nordic countries, it also decides on the different research councils within, I mean, how much they have, how much is for medicine, how much, whereas in the other countries it's decided by the board, and they decide on research programs. So in the last bill there were 24 different research programs. So we have had a history of a lot of steering actually of the subject areas. I think we will not probably have more, but we will have it in a very different direction, and it's difficult for us because we are not used to it.
Yeah, I was actually in Helsinki yesterday meeting colleagues from the other research council, and I think overall there is, increased steering. There is the money to strategic initiatives. They are increasing at the Nordic level, but I also heard similar numbers from UK, where the politicians, invest more and more money into strategic research rather than, the bottom-up research.
Correct.
Can I jump in here, because a lot of this is becoming very hypothetical, and we really can't control what funding the government is or is not going to give us. If we focus back down into what maybe is feasible that we can do here, not right now in the next 4-5 minutes, but what we can start committing to is possibly helping clarify this career track throughout Sweden a little more, and what you think on this and how you think it will help. I mean, you can mention funding, but it's not all about funding.
No, but if I can then bounce back to the audience, since we are in the midst of designing new postdoctoral grant, that would what would they look like if you could decide?
If it's called international postdoc, then open it up to anybody who's had international experience.
And how about national postdocs? Should we also have funds for national postdocs?
I mean, technically I'm a national postdoc now, but I've come from Australia and I have additional experience of 13 years in a different university. So if the whole point of it is to increase international research and support more international research, then don't put down the people that have already done some international research. Yeah, Magnus, Sanna? Microphone.
It's difficult to see why it should be limited to international or national. I think it should be, if you are competitive with moving within Sweden or moving within Europe or moving within the world, it's independent. I mean, the best groups in some research areas are in Sweden. Then why move to the US if the best groups are here? We want mobility, but not necessary. We want mobility for the best researchers to the best labs. That's my view.
Sanna, do you have something to add to
that? No, I had exactly the same. I think we should not have the limitation as national and international, that we have it more open to actually be able to recruit the best as well.
Did I come back to your question? What we should do? I think the first thing we should have make clear how the different career paths at the different faculties look at the moment. We realized that we actually at Lund University, and I think the same we have much bigger differences than we thought between, for example, how does a bull look at different faculties, and some might be because they are different, but some are just because we have had different traditions, and every faculty, this is how everybody is doing it, and this is how it's always been done. But then they realized that we do it in 8 different ways here at Lund University. So we will have very shortly, I think in 2 weeks or something like, a first meeting with all the recruitment boards from all the faculty, just to start to figure out how do we do things. So this is, and then I think we should share best practices. So, and then we should improve the processes, and then we should bring clarity to it at all levels. So we should, but sometimes we think it's just what we publish in the internet. We have to have clear discussions with people at the department level. And then we have to know that if we do it in this way at the Faculty of Medicine and this in the Faculty of Engineering, and if it differs, there is a clear reason why it differs, not just because somebody thought differently 15 years or 100 years ago.
And I encourage other universities. Christina.
That is correct. That we are very good at producing a lot of documents and routines, but we need to talk. We are 4 faculties at our university. We have 4 boards for higher positions at SLU. They did it differently, absolutely. So there was an initiative actually to gather all the members of the Board of Higher Education to discuss how was the procedures, how do we work, how do we look upon the higher positions and so on, to learn from each other. And that was actually very fruitful and continues.
And do you include your future faculties or your early career researchers to help inform that? Since we're the ones in those positions?
This is more the work internally in the board of higher education, higher positions, you can say. But when we work with recruiting of higher positions, we do have representatives from the PhD Council, for instance.
Okay. So it's 12. Well, yeah, no, we have. You have been waiting for a long time. If you don't mind, we'll go a few minutes. So, what's your question?
Yeah, thank you very much for all the lectures. I mean, I did learn from it. We discuss external funding a lot, which I totally understand their rationale. But what I was thinking, why should I, as a company, as an external body, why should I not to employ my own researchers and have my own innovation lab? I mean, I order some researchers to the university for the first year and the second year, and I give funding to the university. Then I might think that why not to have my own researchers and pay them more, because I mean, I can pay them more, but then in total, because I have my own researching body or own researching facility, then it's going to cost me less. Yeah.
Maybe Olivia.
Yeah. I think this is a good question. This is actually, and this is how the environment where we are. There are other doing research now. There are companies doing a lot, but also research institutes. What is the competitive advantage of universities? And as I see it, there are 2 major things. One is the interaction with students, which actually helps the research and makes it better. And the second is that we do a different combination of research where we have the bottom-up, the variety of different research that is then combined with things that we do together with companies. But absolutely, there is a lot of research that companies should do, and then we like them to come to Medicom Village or something that we can interact with them. So we should collaborate and compete with also companies and other forms of organizations. And the same goes for research institutes and for universities in Sweden and internationally. That's the way I see it.
Okay, and with that, I think we have to end today. If you have more questions, you can approach them. If they're not off to lunch, maybe they are. But thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the talks. I hope we can continue the discussions, and future faculty and NJF is always willing to give our opinions on stuff too.
I have one last comment. Yep. I would like to thank Lund University future faculty, Anders, Nicole, and also Erland, and also other people that I cannot name all of them now. Thank you very much for organizing this. Thank you.
Thank you.